An AFL-CIO, proud member of the Teaching Assistant Association since 1970, and the founding member of the U.S. Labor Against the War.
Brothers and sisters, and we are all brothers and sisters here today. Every single one of us here today is here to protest war. The war in Iraq, and this being the 8th tragic anniversary of that war in Afghanistan for 10 years, war against Wisconsin workers, war against American workers, and in fact war against workers all over the world. Now, I'm proud that Wisconsin AFL-CIO was one of the first state federations to call for an end to the war in Iraq back in 2005. I'm proud to have helped found U.S. Labor Against the War, and proud that the Wisconsin AFL-CIO was one of the first state federations to join U.S. Labor Against the War, and that Wisconsin and U.S. Labor Against the War led the fight for the national AFL-CIO to call for withdrawal from Iraq in 2007. That was an historic moment in American labor history. But I'm angry. I'm angry that Wisconsin is also the first state where the Republican National Campaign to emasculate public sector workers began. And yet I'm proud. I'm proud that Wisconsin workers, union and non-union alike, along with farmers and students and clergy and small business owners, that all have rallied, as never seen before, to fight that attack on workers, and that we have an inspired, energized fight back across the country. So we're here to protest many wars, all of which are orchestrated by the same forces. The rich, the powerful, the huge multinational corporations that owe allegiance to no country. The American people, American workers, had no interest in invading Iraq 8 years ago. President Bush had to lie to the American people over and over again to justify his invasion, and to start the largest peacetime protest to prevent war that we've ever seen in this country. But over 5,000 American soldiers have died in Bush's war of choice, and countless hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis as well. And we have paid over $1 trillion for those wars, enough to meet all of our domestic needs, to get rid of all this bullshit about budget deficits, both at the national and the state level. And notice very carefully, Saddam Hussein had outlawed unions in Iraq, but that part of Iraqi law was not changed under the American occupation. And unions in Iraq are still illegal and harassed today. Unions, the force that cuts across religious sectarian lines and that could bring peace to that brutalized country. But some did benefit, and they profited handsomely from the Iraq War. And again, the rich, the powerful, the multinational corporations and their puppets. And they are the same ones waging war on American workers and their unions. They intensified the war on American workers in the private sector back in the 1970s. And they've been depressingly successful in weakening those unions through offshoring, through weakened labor laws, through anti-worker international trade policies, and blocks to organizing in the private sector so that unions can't grow as the economy grows. And now they've come for the public sector workers and their unions. And not just in Wisconsin, but in every state where they have the political power to do it. Wisconsin is the victim of a nationwide strategy. It's well coordinated, it's well financed, and it's backed up with a huge propaganda machine. Now why? You gotta understand this. It's because the American labor movement is the last effective institution in America that still has the power to resist. We are all that stands between them and unrestrained power. Sisters and brothers, there's a war on the workers in America, but we're resisting. We're resisting the wars abroad, and we're resisting the war at home. The war on the workers, and it's time that we started calling the shots. Brothers and sisters, I want to introduce my little brother, the current president of the Wisconsin State AFL-CIO, Bill Neuenfeld.
Solidarity! And Governor Walker and Republican leaders who thought we were going to go away, we're back. We're back today. Next Saturday, we're going to be back in Neenah as we take this show on the road around the state. But we're here today, joined by veterans. Last week, we were joined by farmers. The weeks prior to that, we were joined by people who weren't part of the labor movement. This thing started out with all the labor movement coming together. There's a message here, and the message is, it's a beautiful day for a rally, and we've all come together. We've all come together because in Wisconsin, solidarity is not just a slogan, but it's a way that we, middle class and working families, move forward. Now I'm sure you all know by now that the Dane County Judge Sumi issued a temporary restraining order which blocks the implementation of the anti-worker bill, stripping hundreds of thousands of hard-working Wisconsinites of their rights. From day one, we knew that bill was rammed through illegally in the dead of night. It was passed in a backroom deal by Scott Walker and Senate Republicans. And now a judge has agreed with us and said, this won't stand. You see, in Wisconsin there are rules, and there's a process for passing legislation. And no one is above the law. They broke this democratic process, and therefore, temporarily at least, this bill cannot become law. Yesterday, brothers and sisters, justice prevailed. But this is most likely a temporary victory. The truth is they have the numbers to push through their extreme agenda, and unfortunately, they don't seem to be listening to the citizens of the state of Wisconsin. And that is why we must continue to focus our efforts on taking our government back. You see, we have the understanding that government was created to protect our rights, not take them away. That's why we continue our focus on these efforts. If representatives won't listen to the overwhelming majority of Wisconsin, then we must elect representatives who will. Recall! state of Wisconsin, recalling Republican senators. And I hope that maybe as this process, they'll recall why the hell they were elected in the first place. In addition to that, there's an election coming up for Supreme Court. You have the opportunity to back a candidate who's independent and who will look at things from the eyes of justice and not the Walker agenda. So make sure you vote for Joanne Kloppenberg. Grassroots volunteers all over the state. From what I'm hearing, the energy, the progress, it's steamrolling, and soon I'm sure we will be locked into elections about the future of the Senate here in the state. The energy we've seen through these rallies, the energies that we've seen in communities across the state has been inspiring and truly amazing. We're making history here in Wisconsin. We're making history for union workers. We are making history for non-union workers. And we are making history for all of America. We are and we will continue to fight for our rights as workers and fight for our rights as the working class. Governor Walker wants to balance the budget on our backs, but hundreds of thousands of us are standing together to just say no. He wants to give big-time CEO tax breaks so their corporations can rein in even more profits. At the same time, he wants to make devastating cuts to our children's education, to our health programs for the sick and elderly, and to our local communities. This just isn't right, and we're here, and we will keep being here to tell them this just is not right. The world is watching. The world is watching, and we are showing the world that we will not be silenced. We will not give up. We will not go away. We are going to continue to fight until we win. Right? Thank you, brothers and sisters. And before my final shout out of solidarity, the next speaker that comes before you, I'm happy to say, is from the Machinist Union.